Alright guys, just like that, we are back in the engine room with the big block Mopar for Project Rum Runner. Yesterday we ran this thing on the engine test stand. Things were going great, sounded good. I looked underneath the engine and wouldn't you know it, there was a dang oil leak coming from the rear main seal. So that was like kind of our worst nightmare, because once these things are leaking from the rear main seal, they could quite possibly have to come completely apart. So we're gonna find out today how far we have to take it apart in order to fix the situation. I was up late last night, like thinking about this, and I was like, I have to go like tear into the engine right now. And Olivia said, no, get some rest and maybe tomorrow you can do it. So woke up at 5 a.m. and here I am now. I'm about to start blowing this engine apart and figure out what's wrong with it. Did we put the seal in wrong? Did we put it in upside down, backwards, inside out? What did we do? I thought we did it correctly. First thing we need to do is take off the headers, get those out of our way. Turn the engine upside down, spill a bunch of water all over the ground, and then take off the oil pan. Okay, Olivia showed up just in time. We got the oil pan off. Why didn't we just take the pan off once we had the engine over? Well, you can never really drain out all the oil out of the pan, so I like to take the pan off like that, so that way once we turn the motor over, all that oil doesn't just dump into the engine. Also, like when you're breaking in the engine, you never know what little particulars are on the bottom of the oil pan, and if you just flip it over, then all that junk goes into your engine and then it stays in there. Anyhow, one thing I'd noticed right now, we have a little exhaust leak here, and then I looked around on this side, we got a small exhaust leak here. Now that's only going to multiply once we put mufflers on the car, so we'll have to come up with a different header gasket, or maybe just use some RTV. Good morning.
I got the bucket.
We got an O'Reilly bucket, because once we turn this engine over, it's going to probably puke a lot of coolant.
Ooh, what a mess.
Hog water. Or is it hog water or hog wash?
Here we are, back again. Well, the oil looks good.
It's not oil, it's oil.
Oil.
The oil, how does it say it in the south?
The oil.
It's got an oil leak. It's got an
Just
oil leak.
O-L. Oil.
Just oil. It's got an oil leak. Alright, how are we going to get this out? Let's see what we can do here. comes. Let's see what we got going on. Well, it's in there good. There's a lot of RTV. A lot of RTV action going on. Don't want to pry it from right there. Oh, the seal's on there so good, it's like literally pulling out the seal right now. Which I don't really want to break it because I kind of want to do a little bit of investigating. But if it breaks, there's not much I can do about that. No, it's coming off. Hopefully we didn't put it in there backwards or anything. I thought I double checked that. Triple checked it. Come on now. I'm gonna grab onto it from right here. Ow! Oh. Man, that is one tough seal. Okay, there we go. Okay, there's our cap. It was sealing on the bottom there, and all around the edges. I don't see any oil in, like, it's not wet behind where the seal was at, so I don't think it was going around the cap. So check that off the list. And from the back of the engine, let me zoom out a little bit. From the back of the engine, we didn't see any oil coming from the sides here. It was coming from right here in the back, right in the center. So, had to be coming from the seal. Okay. Now, this is one of those like one-piece seals from Fast Fish. It's not like one. It is one piece when you get it, but you got to cut a slice through it, put it around the crankshaft, and then drop it in the engine. Okay, so this is going to be tough, maybe even impossible, but I got to try to get that seal out from around the crankshaft, from underneath it. So it's going around, and then the slice is on the bottom. You can see how rubbery it is. Pretty tough too. I'm pulling on it pretty hard and it's not ripping. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it out from underneath the crankshaft by pulling on it. Like I said earlier, the slice is underneath on the bottom side. So I'm gonna keep working at it, see if I can't get it out of there from underneath the crank. If I can't, then I'll probably have to loosen up the main caps a little bit in the front, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, so I can kind of lightly lift up the back of the crankshaft without upsetting any of the bearings or the front seal over there. I don't want to have to do that, but we might have to actually to get the new seal in, which we're not too sure yet if I want to put another Fast Fish seal in there, or do I want to try going old school with a two-piece seal. I'm going to try getting another pry bar in here. Pull it from the side. Come on, buddy. Dang, that is one tough seal. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to loosen up some of the main caps. I don't want to rip this thing completely because I do want to kind of diagnose to see what was happening on the underside of this thing. At this point I got all the caps loose, and just prying up on the crankshaft just a little bit. and we'll see if the seal can come out. Okay, so the seal won't come out of there. It's clearly glued down underneath the crankshaft onto the block. So I'm gonna try one more trick that I have using this stuff right here. I found that this stuff actually eats RTV, believe it or not. I'd never thought I could find something like this, but check it out, I'll even show you. So check this out. See, here's the cap from the back. It's got the RTV on it. And let me zoom in a little bit. So if you try to scratch this off, you can see, you know, we're taking some of it off, but watch this. Take this Worth solvent, spray it on there, let it sit for a little bit. See, brake cleaner won't do this. Look at that. Basically just eats it away. So be careful to spray this on your engine to clean anything off, because it'll eat up your gaskets real quick. Look at that. We're going to spray some of this down there around the seal, let it sit for a little bit, and hopefully that'll allow us to take the seal out. Okay, so that was pretty cool. I sprayed that stuff down on in there, and just kept pressure on the seal, and then like literally 5 minutes later the seal just came, pulled right out of there. So that solvent broke loose the RTV. Let's see, maybe we can get this side up now. Not yet, needs a little bit more time. Nope, there it goes. Okay, so here's our seal. Let's first make sure we put it in the right way. Let's step into the light and see. I know on the seal it actually says which direction it goes. So let's see here, let's take off some of this RTV right here. So now this says flywheel side. So this was to the outside, so we had it in the right direction. Now let's look here. The ends of the seal, they were buttered up. You see there's a little bit of RTV there in the middle on that gap. And I'm wondering if maybe that could have potentially gotten our way. It's possible. And it looks like on the outside we had pretty good contact. It's a little thick right here though, which is a little concerning, because you see how thick that is? It is possible that this seal didn't have like enough pressure against it, because if that cap was pushing on there tight enough, I would expect that RTV to be pretty much squished out of there completely. Same thing right here, you see that? See how I'm gonna scratch some of this off right now. See how thick that is? So I'm wondering if that we got something going on with the seal. Like, I'm not saying it's the wrong one, but maybe it got kind of shimmied in there one way or another, because this seal is also really like malleable. Like, you can see how soft it is. So when you put it in there and you put your cap on, if it's not pushing together tight here at the bottom, it may just get caught up in there, and then this whole thing, this part just gets, when the cap goes on, just gets scrunched up, gets tight in one spot, and then in the other spot it's loose. I don't know if that makes sense, but I kind of didn't like that about this seal when we first put it in there, because they want you, here, I'll come over here and explain, hopefully a little better. What they want you to do is put this seal in on the crankshaft and then drop the crankshaft in with this parting line at 12 o'clock. The problem that we had when we put this crankshaft in is we put this on, but it was pushing the two sides of the seals out, separating from each other. So once we put the crank in, I had to reach down in here and stuff. Let me put this camera down. I had to like physically push this around the crankshaft to try to get these two pieces to butt up to each other. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And I'm wondering if that's why we got a little bit of RTV there too, because they also want you to put it around the seal and put it in. So maybe once we put it in there and squeeze this together, it squeezed some of that RTV that was underneath, pushed it out, and got in between the seal here. So I don't know, this is like a really good design, but also it might just be like too good to where there's a lot of room for error. So I'm not too sure what we want to do now, if we want to run this same type of seal, or do we go old school and put this seal in, a two-piece. I don't know, what do you guys think? I gotta make this decision. This thing's just so soft. You feel that? I don't know how I feel about this, because with this way, these seals are like pretty rigid and they're really hard actually, except for the lip on the inside where it seals at. The outside's really hard. This one's soft, so it's much easier for this thing to get all like tight on one side and then not on the other. And if you're gluing it around the outside edge, quite possibly once you put it on there and put the cap on, it just kind of gets stuck tight in one spot and loose on the other, and then potential leak could happen. So I almost wonder if it would be better to put this thing in without even putting RTV around the outside of it and letting it just kind of go where it needs to go, move around and like really seat. But the directions say to put RTV around the outside, so I gotta make a decision. Alright guys, we are in disbelief with what we are seeing right now. I just looked inside the engine and found something very concerning. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. So right there, you could see it's like rusty. Now we just ran this engine yesterday, so some of the cylinders are fine.
I see a little bit of rust forming, so I'm like, well...
On that one right there?
Yeah, well, like...
Yeah, there's like a little bit of rust down there.
Like what?
No, don't tell me we got bigger issues in a rear seal leak. I don't know what is going on right now. I've never seen anything like this before. Maybe you guys have. But there's some surface rust on the cylinder bores, and it's from yesterday when we were running the engine. We turned it off, we drained the oil out of it afterwards, after it cooled down, and then we let the engine sit in here overnight, and then today flipped it over. You guys saw what we've been doing, and there's rust on the cylinder walls. Like, there was no water in the oil pan. I didn't see any sign of moisture in there. So, and then also, why weren't the cylinders like lubricated with oil enough to prevent rust? What the heck happened? Off. It's like a light coat of surface rust, but is it going to do that again? Like once we turn the motor off? Only thing that we could come up with is that maybe there's water getting into the oil somehow. Like potentially a cracked block.
What's the game plan?
We're going to pressurize the cooling system to make sure we don't have a cracked block. Potentially some moisture got into the oil. We don't know. I got this radiator pressure tester I have on here. We blocked off this other side with this and a couple of the miscellaneous parts.
Little Jimmy rig.
So let's pressurize it and hopefully we don't hear any hissing from inside the block.
You want to catch them up on what we just decided?
Yeah, so The cooling system held air pressure, which it should in theory just leak down really quickly compared to water that was in the system with no thermostat, just like no pressure at all. So we don't think that the block is cracked or leaked in any sort of way. Also, the oil didn't have any water in it, so what we think that because we were running water through the system while the engine was running, and then once we turned the engine off, the water was still running and cooled the block all the way down. Well, if you think about it, when the cylinders get hot and then all of a sudden you turn off the engine and then now you got cool water circulating through it, you know, this condensation is going to build up in there. So we think that's what happened. We kind of learned a little bit of a lesson here. We're going to do it a little bit different next time. We're moving forward and we got the rear seal replaced, the 2-piece. We're going back to the old school and I feel good about it. I'm going to put the pan on now and put it back on the engine stand. Get her done. Okay, we're back on the engine run stand. We're turning on the water right now. Gonna fill up the block, and then we're just gonna kind of not run a lot of water through it this time, like a little bit less water. Feeling pretty nervous at this point. We're about to find out if this 2-piece rear main seal stops the leak. There's a lot of work to get it back on here. Let's turn the key. Ignition, ground. You sure we have these hooked up, Rat?
Pretty sure.
Let's check.
Okay.
So we got 12 volts to the coil. That's fine. Let's put one of these
Okay.
here. See if we're getting any spark right now.
Okay.
We're getting spark, so maybe she's just thirsty? Doubt it. But Okay, we've got the engine pretty warm. And so far, no sign of a leak. Last time, for sure, there was oil dripping down back there. So we're gonna run it some more, but I think I think we may have pulled it off.
I think Danny fixed it, but I don't know. I kind of want to run it a little longer too. But I will say, you know, there was we noticed it leaking oil from the rear main seal, or like on the plate for the bell housing, like after the first time we fired it up. Remember, it was kind of like just a little bit, but we were like, oh no, what's that? And then when we ran it again, it got worse. So good news is, like, no signs of leaks.
The rear main seal took away all the carburetor's fame.
I know.
Because this thing fired right up, and it's idling really nice.
I
like,
know.
Look
They
at
haven't even made any
Look,
adjustments.
Well, Ken, he literally said, he's like, oh, just put it on there. It's going to fire right up. It's going to run great for you. Like, great confidence. I was like, okay. Look at this.
Yeah. Kick-ass carb.
Yeah, that's going to be in that.
I know. Soon. Well, this was a big step because we had to get this done because we were not installing it with a leak.
And I wasn't going to bed tonight with the leak.
No, it wasn't. So here it is. We will keep running it and keep monitoring it. What's the takeaway?
The takeaway is... Oh.
The takeaway is technology is great, but sometimes you just got to go old school.